Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of the podcast Pod Talks. We're here with Elisa doing our weekly pod talk. We haven't done one in a while, but we're back
Yeah, we're
ready
back.
to answer your questions. But today we're not going to do a Q&A. Today we're going to be talking about, well, sharing with you guys 4 tips to help you create a healthier relationship with food. Because often something that we see all the time, whether it's with our clients or just social media, and also from our past experience, is that we try all these quick fixes to get those results that we want. And we forget about creating that healthy relationship with food, which is like the foundation that we need if we want to reach our fitness goals. Whether you want to lose body fat or gain muscle mass, if we don't have that foundation, it gets messy. And then we know what happens. We know the cycle that we get into that is really hard to get out. So we're going to be sharing our tips with you guys. But before we get started, how are you feeling today, Elisa?
Yes, good to be back. Yeah, like life just gets a bit busy sometimes. Like you were away, and then I had school holidays, so like kind of out of schedule. But we're back, and it's good because we'll have more to talk about. But we thought this would be like a good topic because it's something that I'm sure many of you guys listening. I mean, we have like a similar audience, and I think the biggest thing is people find not the exercise part easier, but it's more natural to them, where the food side is where a lot of people struggle. And the food side is where a lot of people let themselves down. And I find that even being like working in gyms many years as well, this is where I saw a lot of people fall down. Like they were so good at showing up exercise wise and thinking they can out train their bad diet. And this is what we'll go into later, like, thinking that, labeling foods as good and bad, and thinking that being at the gym for 3 hours is going to make up for, their poor nutrition. So trying to just build better mindset and understanding of food, I think is going to really help you guys, because you don't want to look at food in a negative way, because at the end of the day, food's going to be a part of your life always, every day. It's not something that you can get rid of, so you want to make it something where you look at positive and it doesn't consume you either. I think that's another thing. People really let it consume them. And, I even know some people that avoid going places because of that whole food trauma and food, lack of food understanding and comfortability with, eating out and all of that. So yeah, we really hope that you benefit from these tips.
Yeah, let's get it started. We've got quite a few. Well, we've got 4 main ones. I think there's quite a few, but we're only gonna give you four so we
Yeah.
can break it down and then don't give you too much. But the first one, I think the most important one, well, they're all important, but the main one that I always, especially me, I always talk about on my social media, I always talk about it with my clients, is that we need to stop labeling food as good and bad.
Yeah.
I feel like this is something that we do because maybe it seems normal, maybe because we just do it out of habit, maybe because our friends, moms, parents, sisters, cousins used to do it, so we just copy what everyone else is doing, maybe because we see it on social
Media.
media, yeah, social media. And it's this idea of like, if you want to lose body fat, you need to eat good or you need to eat healthy. And if you don't want to gain too much weight, you need to stop eating the unhealthy food or the bad food. And anything that's like processed or like takeaways or, yummy, it's all the bad things, all the healthy things such as your greens, your veggies, your boring food, the basics that we don't want to eat. We just want to have the bad food. But the problem with that, like if we keep labeling food as good or bad, it's gonna be very, very challenging to build that healthy relationship because you're always gonna be using those labels. And any time that for whatever reason you don't eat your chicken and rice that you meant to eat and you have
Mm.
McDonald's, then you're gonna tell yourself, oh my gosh, this is so bad. This is gonna make me put on 5 kgs overnight. And straight away you're gonna feel like I'm gonna gain so much weight. And because you're convincing yourself that you're gaining weight, you're gonna look at yourself in the mirror, you're gonna think that you are gaining weight, but you're not. It's just because you have been convincing yourself the whole day, this is so bad, this is so bad, this is so bad. And yeah, that's why it creates that unhealthy and very unpleasant relationship. And that's another reason why it can really affect your social life as well, which is something you mentioned earlier. It can really impact you, like when you go out with your friends, maybe with your boyfriend, with your girlfriend, with your family, and then they eat those foods. You're like, no, this is bad. I don't want to eat this. Like I'm on like diet. I need to eat healthy. I just need to eat good foods. But there's no such a thing as good or bad. Like it's more like when you start seeing more as like high quality food, like foods that are gonna nourish your body, give you the right nutrients. And then we also have low quality foods, the ones that are not really gonna give you too much nutrients, but they're tasty. And we want that. We wanna, we wanna eat things that are
You want
tasty.
to balance, yeah. Like everything in moderation. Like this is what people don't understand as well. Like too much healthy food is not good. Like it's food's food at the end of the day. Like you can overconsume healthy food. And this is where a lot of people go wrong. They're like, oh, I'm eating so healthy, but they're eating way over the amount of calories that they should be, or the portion sizes are really big. So it's not just and like you said, not just labeling food as healthy, because then when you do go out, you're going to really struggle to, enjoy that meal. You're going to struggle to bounce back from that meal because you're going to be beating yourself up. So it's just about having a balance. And like I always say to people, I think the best approach for this is to just include the foods that you genuinely enjoy in your plan. Like there's so many ways that you can fit them in, there's endless ways, and there's so much education out there now, like even people, like perfect example, this is just something that came to mind, like bread, for example. If you love bread, you can have bread, but there's so many different options that
Mhm.
could fit better into the amount of calories that you need to consume or what's better for you. You know what I mean? So there's ways that you can still have it, but just in moderation. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, maybe you're not going to have it for breakfast, lunch, dinner, but you can still have it. And I think if you label it, like there was a big thing, like people were labeling bread's bad for you, bread's bad. And it's like, no, like all my girls have bread in their diet daily. Like it's something that people enjoy. It's something that fills you up. It's allowed to be in there. So it's like looking for ways to still have these foods.
Mhm.
But you're obviously combining it, like you were saying, with high quality foods. So, rather than having a sandwich just with, Nutella spread or, some chocolate, you might decide to, I'm gonna have a sandwich with chicken, some salads, some sauce, like something like that. You know what I mean? So you're having, still your micro and macronutrients in there, but you're still enjoying the foods that you love.
Yeah. And I like how you mentioned like you can even overconsume healthy food. And it's not
Yeah.
like it's not about the food, what healthy and healthy. It's about how much you're eating. If you're eating too
Yeah.
much of like the healthy food, even though it's healthy, you
Yeah.
still eat more calories because you're gonna be having those excess calories from that chicken, from that broccoli, from that rice, or whatever healthy diet that you're following. So it has nothing to do with what you're putting into your body. If we're just talking about fat loss, nothing else. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with what you're putting into your body. It's more to do how much you're putting into your body. Because you're
That's right.
putting too much, then obviously you're gonna gain that weight. And then there was another thing back then, or maybe it was more like in my home country. People used to say like if you mix carbohydrates with carbohydrates, let's say like rice and potatoes or like rice and bread, this is so bad. This is gonna make you put on so much weight. You should never mix carbohydrates with carbohydrates. And I was like, where did this idea came from? Like, who told you that mixing carbs is bad? It's not bad. Like
Yeah.
when it's just about calories. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of rice. Maybe you want to have some potatoes. Like some meals are like
Yeah.
that in some countries. Rice with potatoes and a steak and different veggies, whatever it is, it has nothing to do with what you're mixing. It's more about how much you put in there.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think the main thing to fix this problem or to slowly have that healthier relationship, like Elisa said, include the things that you love. Don't exclude everything. I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest mistake that we can make. I've done that mistake for so many years. I used to exclude bread because I was like, bread is so bad, or rice,
Yeah.
potatoes, um, anything that's like sugary. No sugar. I'm gonna cut out sugar. I'm not gonna have any sugar.
Yeah.
This is so
Yeah, there was that big craze. I remember it was years ago where it was like no sugar for 30 days, like I'm gonna like a challenge.
yeah.
And it's like people did it, but then they binged so hard after because they restricted themselves for like a month from no sugar. We're talking nothing. And it was like your body actually needs a little bit of sugar, like whether people want to, admit it or not. So at the end of the day, I think this is a problem as well. Social media and these like challenges, and people come on and these fad diets, and it's like this is going to work, and it's not going to work.
No.
Might work for a few weeks, might work for maybe longer than a few, but it's not going to be sustainable. So, and then that's where people got into labeling food as good and bad because they're like, oh, that's got sugar, I can't eat that. Oh, that's got sugar, I can't eat that. And I'm like, well, you know what? You'll probably find even a lot of healthy foods have sugar. Fruit has sugar. Like there's things like there's so many ingredients. And I think people need to understand that, like we were saying before, if we keep labeling these foods as good and bad, you're never probably going to have food freedom.
Mhm.
You're never going to be free from being able to enjoy meals the way that you want, being able to eat out with friends or family, being able to go on a holiday and, enjoy. So I think people really need to understand that if you really want to make this a lifestyle change and not a quick fix, you've got to really start looking at food as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you don't want to keep feeling guilty every single time you have something unhealthy. Like that's not the way you want to live. Trust me. Again, we've done that mistake before when we started with our journey. We did
Yeah.
it. We learned our lesson, and now we don't do it anymore. And now we're telling you don't do it because it doesn't have to be like that. Like I eat bread every single day. For breakfast, I have toast with peanut butter. Lunch, I have chicken
Mm.
wrap. Dinner, I have
My
sweet
pre-workout, I
potato.
had bread, like, yeah.
Trust
Yeah.
me, carbohydrates or bread, it's not your enemy, it's your best friend. And you want to have those carbohydrates. So
Yeah.
yeah, the first thing that we'll say, stop labeling food as good or
Yeah.
bad. The second tip that we want to give you guys is that we want you to be more mindful or listen to your body a little bit better. By
Mhm.
this, we mean like listen to your hunger cues, listen to your fullness cues. Like stop eating out of habit. Stop eating just, mindlessly having those snacks while you're watching TV or doing something or socializing. It's
Yeah,
not
all of
just because the food is there and oh yeah, the food is here. I want to eat as much as I want, and then you feel full, and then you don't stop. You keep going and going and going because why? Tomorrow I'll get back on track. What the hell? Tomorrow I'll get back
that.
on track. If you don't listen to your hunger cues or fullness cues, how are you gonna be in touch with your body? If that make sense. Like, how do you think that relationship is gonna get better if you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again?
Becomes a habit. I don't know
Yeah.
if you know
Yes.
people like even some like they got so used to picking all day that like it was mindless. Like they're like, oh, they look at the end of the day, they're like, wow, I've probably had like half a bag of nuts, but I didn't think I was having a lot because they would just have two, like little two at a time, two at a time. And it's like they get to the end of the day and they're like, oh, you know what I mean? And it's like they're not really hungry, they're just so used to picking. And that's what you're saying, like listen to your body, it can be mistaken for boredom.
Yeah.
Um, you know, when you're, like I know like well, you would know as well, like being when you're working from home, sometimes being at home more, you're more likely to be like, oh, you're in your environment where there's food. Whereas, like, if you're out of the house, there's not as much of that temptation because you're busy and you're distracted. So, this is where a lot of people that work from home found that hard as well. So, it's about really building strong habits around not mindlessly picking,
Yeah.
and really trying to get out of that because then if once you start that and you do it for a very long time, it's like any habit. It's very hard to train yourself to stop doing that. So yeah, I think people need to really be aware. And sometimes they're not. Like they'll get to the end of the day and be like, what did I just have? Like, so yeah, it's really important to listen to your body. Easier said than done. But I think if people actually self-talk, I know we've spoken about it on a previous podcast, like that self-talk. Sometimes you have to talk to yourself and be like,
Mhm.
okay, what am I? Because sometimes you just mindlessly do things and it's like, it's the same with like social, you mindlessly scroll, like you're not actually thinking. So talking to yourself, self-talk is super, super important. And it sounds silly, but it does work.
It does 100%. But I
Yeah.
think like, this is why so many people gain weight during COVID because, we were working from home.
Yeah.
Everyone was working from home.
Yeah.
People were, it was easier for people to just mindlessly eat while they were watching TV, watching Netflix or whatever. And that's why it was also very hard for people to lose weight after COVID because they
Yeah.
already built the
The
habit
habits.
in
Yeah.
watching TV, eating, or just eating, working from home. Now more people, have that freedom of working from home, which is good in a way, but it can also affect your fitness journey if you don't have that healthy relationship with food just yet. So yeah, if when you find yourself like mindlessly eating that popcorn or eating those chips or whatever it is that you're eating, have that conversation, like Elise said, like if you don't reflect, if you don't have that little talk or that little check-in with yourself, how are you gonna be aware of what you're doing? You're
That's
simply
right.
gonna keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's what like something I always suggest to my clients and something I do like whenever I'm craving something, whether it's straight after I finish my lunch or maybe at nighttime or the week before my period when your cravings are really high. If I'm craving something, instead of me running and getting that cookie or whatever it is that I'm craving, just have a little check-in, okay? am I hungry right now? Am I just craving something? If it's something
Yeah,
specific, probably I'm just craving that cookie. Do I really
right.
want it right now? Like, is it worth it for me? Yes, it's gonna be delicious, of course, but is it worth it for me right now? Like, how am I gonna feel after I have that cookie? Am I gonna feel happy, or am I gonna feel upset that I had it? Am I gonna feel disappointed that I had it? So having that little conversation and also having that time before you eat that cookie will get
Yeah.
reflect.
I feel like people, they think about this when it's too late. They're after. They're like, damn it, I shouldn't have had it. They're not quick enough to kind of talk themselves out of it as well.
Yeah.
Um, and another strategy, just a little strategy, I don't know, like this is just for, I think, people that really, really struggle with this. Another strategy that I gave my clients as well. I think a lot of people, they buy, like rather than buying single packets, they'll buy the big bag.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the picking comes from. Whereas if you just had the single packets, like for example, popcorn, if you bought like the one that has the packets inside, you're less likely to pick on it because you've got to open that whole packet. Whereas the ones where people just have the bags and they're just there or they're in a container, people really pick as well. So I always say to people, try to buy like the single serves, because that way, if you do have it, at least it's like calorie controlled too. It's a serving size. It's not you just kind of eating and eating without stopping. That's another really good tip as well.
Yeah, make sure you guys are writing down. And again, make sure you're applying the tips that we're telling you. Like, don't just
Yeah.
listen and then, yeah, whatever, beautiful tips. Like, it's
Yeah.
like things that you can start implementing ASAP.
Is
Otherwise,
it?
as we always say, like, if nothing changes, nothing changes. You're gonna keep
That's
feeling
right.
hungry. Your relationship with food is not gonna change. You're gonna keep telling yourself that I'm eating healthy, but I'm not getting the results that I want to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing will change. Okay, the next tip that we have for you guys is to stop focusing too much on the calories and start focusing more on the actual nutrition of that
Yeah.
food, what that food is giving you.
Yeah.
Something that I used to do as well in the past when I started with my journey, I was so like picky. I don't know if picky is the right word, but I was so concerned with calories. I was like, how much? Oh, how many calories? I will double check
Like
everything that
very
card.
fixated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was too obsessed. Like, I was so obsessed with numbers and calories, which it was very unhealthy because it just didn't let me enjoy anything. My mind would just, whenever someone offered me something in my mind, I'll be like, how many calories are those cookies? Okay, 80, I have two. It's gonna be 160 if I have three. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Like
yeah,
trying to
it's
really.
too many numbers like up here. And it's like food is not just about calories. Yes, obviously, you're gonna be eating those calories. But if you're trying to cultivate a healthier relationship with food, don't worry about the calories just yet. It's good
Yeah.
to have a good understanding of calories, roughly, okay,
Yeah.
like,
Of course.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be blah blah. But if you're being getting too fixated, forget about the numbers and just think about how that food is fueling your body. Why you need to eat those rice cakes before your workout, why you need that carbohydrate, the protein, the fats, and everything. Once you start seeing that in a different angle, from a different angle, it's gonna be easier to slowly build that healthy relationship. And
Yeah. And
like,
like I don't know if you think the same, but like I do like macro tracking and all of that. Like I love that personally, but I think because I'm someone that's a little bit more advanced and not so food focused, I can do that. But for a lot of my clients, we don't focus on like that's why we just update the plan weekly, because rather than focusing on let's hit this amount of calories, because then they become very fixated. They just prefer to, okay, this is what I'm eating. I'm fueling my body. I've got my little treat in there. I've got this in there, like this. I've got that. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you need to really be mentally strong with food to be able to go down that path of tracking on your own. Because otherwise, like you said, you look at everything and then
mhm,
you're like, even when you're out, you're not
yeah,
focused, you're not present.
yeah,
You're constantly thinking, okay, I just ate that. That's that many calories. Just ate that. That's it. Like, you get really fixated. So that's why there's that whole debate like meal plan versus macros. And I don't think that one is superior than the other. It's just depending on where you're at in your journey, depending on how disciplined you are with food, depending on how much knowledge you have around food. Macro tracking for a lot of my girls is not realistic for them because they would just become really super fixated on it, or they don't know how to do it properly. So them just having a meal plan every week is just something that's better and easier for them to follow. So I don't know if you think that's like if you agree with that as well, like that meal plans and macros kind of have their place, like depending.
Yeah, I feel yes and no. Like I do agree with meal plans. I feel like meal plans is much easier for people to follow because they don't have to worry about the numbers. We as a
Yeah,
we as coaches, we are the ones, doing the numbers because we have the healthy relationship. It's
yeah.
fine for us to add, deduct, whatever. But I
I
think for
agree.
people, I will say I don't like the idea of tracking macros because people are already too fixated with the numbers on the scale with their weight. I'm 65. Tomorrow I'm gonna yesterday I was 61. Now I'm 65, 62, 60, whatever. I think
Yeah,
because they're already too fixated with that, adding more numbers, so adding the macros and for them,
yeah,
you need to track your lunch, you need to hit this many macros for your protein, your carbs, your fats. I think it works 100%. It works. They do get results, yes. But is that healthy? I don't think it's healthy at all.
yeah,
Because majority
yeah,
of people don't have that healthy relationship. That's why they're struggling. That's why they're not getting those results. But if
yeah,
it's someone, like you said, like someone that's very, very advanced,
yeah.
I just feel like it's too time consuming. If you're willing to do that, obviously, if it works for you, do
I
it.
think it's good for
But,
more like I like it the idea of like maybe you're away
mhm,
and you're not eating your usual foods. But if you're like in your usual routine, I just think a meal plan is more ideal because, okay, I'm gonna follow this for a week. You can prep it. And then it's still good to have some understanding of calories because if you go out, you can make swaps accordingly, but you don't want to be so fixated on it. You know what
mm.
I mean? So that's why it's really good, like you said, I think to focus on like, meal timing and okay, having, these sort of meals, but having still a little bit of a treat in my day, like to make me stay on track, little things like that, I think are really important. Yeah.
I remember when I was studying personal training, which was like a 6 months course. Two of the guys that were studying with me, they were tracking macros every single day. So for the 6 months, I saw them tracking macros every single day, like from Monday to Friday that we used to go to class. And I used to tell them, like, how can you live like that? Every time we go to eat something or every time we have a coffee or whatever, you guys are like on your phone tracking everything. Like, how do you live your life like that? Like, is that fun? Is that enjoyable? Because like me, I wasn't doing that back then at that time, but
Yeah.
I just saw them doing it and I was like, I don't like this. Like, this looks like too much, like too much time
Yeah.
being of like tracking everything.
Well, that's the thing as well. I found with macros, like people would, if you don't do it the day before, you do it as the day goes on. Sometimes you get to the night and you're like, shit, I've got no calories left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because people like are just doing it mindlessly. So like even with macros, like when I've done it before, I still set myself a meal plan for the week. So I'm still technically doing a meal plan. I'm just following a certain macros. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's just easier. And like you said, you might be like, okay, like I've got some girls that are like, look, I've been craving this, or like you said, periods are coming. I'm craving this. So, okay, let's add this into your plan. You know what I mean? To kind of help with that. And having that portion control, still having that, not restricting it, is going to build that better relationship with the foods.
Yeah, I think that's a better approach. Like if you do for
Yeah,
the whole week, because then you don't have to like daily be like tracking everything.
exactly. I don't know
I
how to do that.
I think that would be like really good for someone like you who's like very advanced. You have really good relationship.
Yeah, yeah,
You're not too fixated with numbers at all. Like you know what you're doing. I think
yeah,
for someone like you, 100% yes. But for someone like I guess the majority of population that don't have that relationship with food, I will say my advice: don't do it.
yeah.
It's
Just
not
focus
necessary.
on
Just make it easy.
consuming whole foods, still including the foods that you love, having a little bit of, treats here and there, like, not restricting yourself because as, we've talked about this so many times, restriction just leads to binging. So we don't want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the next thing that we will say, the next tip, is to be mindful when you eat. And by this, I mean like make sure you take your time. Make sure you
Mm,
taste that food. Make sure you feel or taste that texture, all the textures in your mouth. Like don't just rush and don't just swallow
yeah.
whatever you're eating because often the mistake that we do when we don't have a healthy relationship with food is that we eat very, very fast. We
Yeah.
eat without even thinking about what we're eating. And that's why as soon as you finish, you can finish the whole packet of chocolate or the whole packet of chips. And then you're like,
Yeah.
what happened? Did I just
Yeah.
eat the whole thing? Like, how did that happen so
I
quick?
used to do this. I used to eat so fast. Or I used to eat whilst I was doing something. I
Mm,
wasn't present with my food. And then I was like, oh, did that, like, oh, my food's gone. Like, you know what I mean? So
yeah, like,
actually sitting down, yeah, and just like enjoying the food and being present makes the biggest difference. It really does.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you work from, well, whether you are from home or at the office, when you have your lunch, just take 10 minutes off your day. Like I'm surely you have 10 minutes to take
Yeah,
from, a little break to go and eat something, to get away from your computer, from your phone.
yeah.
Just sit down with your container if you're eating by yourself. Sit down with your container and then have your lunch. Because yeah, another thing that people always say is like, I don't have time to eat. Make the time. Like
Make
maybe
the time.
if you don't
Make the
have the time to eat, make the time. Like it's only
time.
10 minutes. You're not gonna be eating for 1 hour, like chewing
Yeah,
your food for
that's
1 hour.
right.
It takes 10, maybe 15 if you're a slow
Yeah,
eater, 20 max. But
yeah,
it's
yeah,
20 minutes a day that you're taking for your lunch,
yeah.
or maybe just eating some snacks throughout the day. It's not too, I feel like it's not too much to ask. You're doing this for your health. You're
Many
not,
people just say that as an excuse.
yeah.
Yeah, and then this is where I see a lot of people do this,
Mhm.
where they're like, I didn't have time to eat. And then what happens when they get to the night, when they do sit down?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Eat everything, you know what I mean? So if they were to actually eat throughout the day and take that time, they're like, oh, I got to dinner. Like, especially even a lot of my girls, they were eating like 2 meals a day, 2 or 3, and now they're eating like 6 times a day, and they're so much better because they're like, I'm not eating such a massive meal at dinner. It's actually so portion controlled because I've had like my breakfast, my snack, my lunch, like they're having those meals throughout the day. So yeah, that's really, really important.
Yeah. Another thing, like when people tell me I don't have the time to eat, to me it sounds like I'm prioritizing something or someone else but
Yeah,
myself.
yeah, that's right.
Because yeah, I do understand you're busy working. We all
Yeah,
are. I get it
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
But don't prioritize your work, don't just prioritize someone else or yeah, your work. You need to
Your
prioritize
health, your health and your
yourself.
mindset. Yeah,
Exactly. It's just 10
priority.
minutes. Like all that we're asking, and we shouldn't be asking you this. Like it's your
Yeah,
body. But it's just 10 minutes. So you take a little break, eat your lunch, whatever you're having, blah blah blah, eat it. And then you can get back to work. And you're gonna function better because your brain is gonna be fueled, with the carbohydrates that you had. You're gonna feel more energized. You're gonna feel better that also you took that little break. Because sometimes when we're, sitting in the computer for too long, you get tired. You're like, ah, you just have that feeling. But if you take a little break, come back, you come back refreshed, you come back energized. Maybe you went to take a little fresh air if you ate outside. Do that for
yeah.
yourself. Like, yeah, yeah, I don't get it.
No, I don't get it either. I think it's just people use it as an excuse, and it's more like if you think about it, it's more laziness when you're not setting aside that time because it's developing those habits where it's like if something's too hard, oh, I'm just not going to do it. It's like no, this is your health. It's a priority. Take the time, and like you said, it's 10 minutes out of your day. I know the busiest people. I'm talking that have so much on, and they still have that time to get their meals in. That's reality,
Mm,
so they make the time, you know, and like you said something really good before. What was it? If nothing changes,
mm.
nothing changes.
Yeah, if
Like
nothing
you've
changes,
got to,
nothing.
yeah, like you've got to make that change. And if it's sacrificing 10 minutes in your day, I don't think it's a bad sacrifice. I think it's a sacrifice that's going to benefit you in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about choosing your hard. I love that saying as well. Like choose your
Yeah,
hard. What's
yeah,
harder? You always falling off the wagon, not being able to achieve results because you're eating, all your food at night or, over consuming because you're so hungry, or taking the time, maybe it means that you have to cut into a bit of work time or something else to actually get meals in so that you're able to stay more on track with your nutrition and have better habits around food. Like it's like which one, you got to figure out which one's going to be beneficial for you.
yeah. And that's why like having a schedule helps
Yeah.
in times like this. Like if you're really busy, have your schedule, like schedule your things. So from this time to this time I have to do my work. This time I want to take my lunch break and like put on your calendar lunch break 10, 20
Yeah.
minutes. And then blah blah, whatever work you have to do. If you're eating any snacks, make the time like
Yeah.
there's 24 hours in a day, maybe 16 if you sleep 8 hours. It's
Yeah.
still enough time. Like it's still plenty of time for you to take just
Yeah.
10 minutes out of that time, out of that day to have your food. Like it's not too much to ask. You're doing this for yourself, your health, your future self is gonna grateful that you're doing this for yourself and that you're feeling your body and you're gonna be performing better throughout the day. Whether you're working or maybe you go to the gym, you're gonna have a better training session as well. You won't feel tired, you're gonna push yourself and you're gonna slowly, slowly, slowly progress every single time more and more and more and more.
And that's
Like,
what, like, if you're listening to this, anyone that's listening to this, you're listening for a reason.
mm,
You've seen this title
Yep.
4 tips to have a better relationship with food. If you want a better relationship with food, this is probably what's brought you to listen to these podcasts. Do it, make the change, implement even one of these tips that we've given you. You
Mm.
know, you could maybe even do two if you're someone that's like, no, I really want to, so it's like you're listening to this for a reason. We're talking to you because, and we're giving you these tips because we want to help you. You know what I mean? And from experience, many years of experience, what we've seen with our clients at the end of the day, it's going to help you. So just take what you can on board and make that change, because it's going to benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, I love that. And something
Yeah.
else I will add to that is that when you're making the change, it's gonna be challenging because it's something different. So
Yeah.
don't expect it to be like very easy overnight. Don't
Yeah. Or
expect
you could do it in one day and it's like
it.
done. Yeah.
Yeah. It will take time. Like your mind, it's gonna be fighting you because your mind is gonna want to do the thing that it's used to, which is, just mindlessly snacking, not making time for yourself to eat, eating very fast, not enjoying your food because again, that's what you're used to. So you need to fight back and you need to, go through that challenge. It's not painful, obviously, but it might be a challenge. So
And
take it.
strategize a bit better, like how you can change it, not just like, oh, I'll try, but what could you do in your day to kind of strategize to make these things happen?
Yeah.
That's another thing as well. Yeah.
So make sure you do it, guys. Don't just listen, don't do nothing. And like the 4 tips that, a quick recap of the 4 tips that we tell you or we recommend, suggest that you start implementing. Number one, stop labeling food as good or bad. Food is just food, nothing else. Stop focusing too much on calories and start paying more attention to the nutrition, how that food or foods are fueling your body.
Yeah.
It's about being more mindful with what you're eating, like eat very slow, don't swallow your food, take your time, enjoy every single bite, and make sure you pay more attention to your body, to your hunger cues, to your fullness cues. Really listen to your body, like stop doing things out of habit. Listen to your body, and that's gonna be the connection that you need to be that healthier relationship with food. It's gonna take time, so be patient. It won't happen overnight. Just like changes in your body won't happen overnight. Any relationship that you have to work on is gonna take time to improve that relationship. So be patient and keep doing the work. But is there anything else you want to mention before we go?
No, I think we covered it all. Just, yeah, like we always say, just take on this advice. And, if you do need help, reach out to either of us, you know what I mean? And we're more than happy to, maybe give you a solution that's more suited to your lifestyle if you're a bit unsure.
Mm. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it on your social media. Tag me and Elisa. Until next time, and as I always say, don't ever stop believing in yourself. Ciao, ciao.